Breaking tonight, new reaction from the Clinton campaign after we saw signs today that Vice President Joe Biden may be considering his own run for the White House. This while Mrs. Clinton takes another hit in the polls. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is live in Washington for us tonight. Ed?
Well, they're telling us tonight they're not really worried. They're going to run their own campaign. Megyn, Democrats close to Clinton, as you know, have loved the tension so far between Donald Trump and the rest of the crowded Republican field. But she may now have a civil war of her own as Vice President Biden edges closer to potentially getting into this race. The new Fox poll tonight shows while Clinton still has a commanding lead, she's reached a new low after self-inflicted wounds over her email server, dropping 10 points since June alone. That's given an opening to Bernie Sanders as well as the vice president. The speculation about Biden accelerated after Fox broke the news last Thursday. The vice president's chief of staff met with a top Democratic fundraiser to potentially gauge whether he can raise enough money at this late stage. Now Fox has confirmed today the vice president also brought back two key political advisors who could help put together a campaign. And look at this Chicago-based Draft Biden 2016 group. Their I'm Riding with Biden bumper stickers, they say on their website, are sold out as some of President Obama's top advisors tonight are suddenly caught in the middle of this potential fight. Listen.
The president certainly believes that a spirited contest would be in the best interest of our party and in the best interest of our country.
He has attained a great stature as a senior statesman within the Democratic Party. And does he want to risk all that in a battle that he would be very uphill?
Now, Clinton aides insist they're not panicking about this, though it's interesting. The candidate has suddenly decided to start running her first TV ads in Iowa and New Hampshire tomorrow to yet again try to reintroduce herself to voters. Megyn?
Reintroduce? How many times are we going to meet her?
They know her pretty well.
Oh, my gosh. All right, Ed, thank you. Also breaking tonight for the Clinton campaign, a federal judge unhappy with her, demanding that the former Secretary of State and two of her most trusted aides go on the record under penalty of perjury for the first time about the private email server that she used as Secretary of State. Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Anna Napolitano is here. So this is one of those Freedom of Information Act requests that was filed against the State Department that they blew off. They gave information and they were not truthful about every place they checked and the extent of the records, and this judge has about had it with all of them.
He has, and Friday afternoon he ordered that her two aides, whose faces were just on the screen.
Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin.
Correct. As well as Mrs. Clinton herself, certify, quote, under penalty of perjury, a phrase rarely used by a federal judge, never, in my experience, used by a federal judge when dealing with a present or former federal official. Certify under penalty of perjury. What happened to these emails? How did they get from your computer as Secretary of State to where they are now? What circuitous route did they take?
And not just you, ma'am, but your two top aides, which is, that begs that we haven't seen anything from them yet.
Now, remember, Mrs. Clinton is not in the courtroom, and she doesn't have a lawyer in the courtroom. This is a lawsuit filed by Judicial Watch, a watchdog group in Washington, D.C., under the Freedom of Information Act against the State Department looking for her emails. The case was once dismissed because the judge bought the State Department's argument that we don't have
everything. We gave everything.
And then the State Department and Judicial Watch together came back to the judge saying, you got to reopen this case. We just learned that she's been hiding tens of thousands of emails from us.
So, but here, just to round back with the viewers, remember when this first came out that Hillary had her own email account and it wasn't on the State Department.gov website and so on, or server. Marie Harf was asked, are you now going to go back and comply with your legal duties to pull Mrs. Clinton's records for all the Freedom of Information Act requests and all the congressional demands that you at State said you met?
Right.
And now we find out you didn't even bother to check Hillary Clinton's server and so on. And she said, no, we're not. We're not going to go back and look at any of it. And this was the prediction. You were on the show. We talked about it. You and I both agreed with this. This is what we said. She said they will not be going back and examining whether her emails were produced in response to FOIA requests, Freedom of Information, that have already come in. I have news for you, Marie. Yes, you will be doing that. Trust me. Once the lawyers get a hold of you, you're going to be doing it.
Well, that's exactly the situation that she's in now. Here's another fear Mrs. Clinton should have. When the government suspected that General Petraeus kept secure documents in a desk drawer in his house, in his home, The FBI raided his home to get those documents. The government doesn't suspect that Mrs. Clinton has secure documents. We know she does, and she gave a thumb drive to her lawyer, who does not have a security
clearance. So why
clearance,
the double
and he
standard?
has
Why
them.
would they be so enthusiastic about raiding the home of General Petraeus and not a Secretary of State Hillary Clinton?
I suggest to you that we would have to ask that to Attorney General Lynch or even the president himself. Mrs. Clinton should be treated like anybody else who is apparently, I'll take that back, obviously violating the law by failing to secure classified documents and keeping them in insecure venues not approved by the government.
I just want to put it on the board so the viewers can see for themselves what this Judge Sullivan wrote. As related to the FOIA request, this is Freedom of Information request in this case, the government is hereby ordered to request that Mrs. Clinton, Mrs. Abedin, and Ms. Mills confirm under penalty of perjury that they have produced all responsive information that was or is in their possession as a result of their employment at the State Department.
Look at the date, July 31st. He gave them until August 7th. He just gave them a week to do it. And I cannot emphasize to you too much the significance of this federal judge appointed to the bench by her husband, using the phrase under penalty of perjury, reminding her, for the first time, Mrs. Clinton, you will be under oath. And if you deviate from your obligation to tell the truth, I will know about it, and you will bear the consequences.
She was not, as she was supposed to be, required to fill out that OF 109 when she left state.
We've been through that.
She should have been required to do it, but of course they gave her a pass. This judge has basically said, you'll do it now. You'll certify under a penalty of perjury that you have given all the documents you had, and if not, there will be a consequence.
And if the FBI doesn't get the server, and Congressman Gowdy's committee lacks the authority to get the server, guess what this judge can do? Order the server produced into his courtroom and examined by experts right then and there.
That's amazing. I mean, they are not officially parties to the lawsuit. The judge didn't directly order these three women to make the certification. They're ordering the State Department to go get them. But that puts State and Mrs. Clinton in a very difficult position.
It does.
Great to see you, Judge.
Likewise.
Well, we also have new reports tonight on reports of possible criminal charges for the Navy officer who went after the shooter in last month's massacre in Chattanooga. Is it true? We've been investigating. Plus, there's a major break in the search for an ex-con accused of murdering an Iraq veteran turned police officer. And we will have that next, along with Mark Furman and Mark Hanna, who are here on how one police chief is using this case to turn the Black Lives Matter movement on its head.
Please hurry up. Complex are you, man? Are you on the north side or closer to the street? Do you know? It's Southern Lane. 48 Southern Lane. He shot. Officer is shot.